All right, everybody, welcome to BO Boys for Monday, April 17th. F it, it's a raw feed. We're doing it live. I'm Clayton.
Yeah, I'm Pat. Clayton, huge weekend for last weekend's champion, Super Mario, but possibly not a great weekend for any of the newcomers. So, why don't we get into it? Could you please give us a box office plow for the weekend of Friday, April 14th, 2023?
Number one, the Super Mario Brothers movie made $87 million, down only 41%. It added 28 theaters. It's at $347.8 million in its second weekend. Number two, The Pope's Exorcist made $9.1 million in its first frame. Number three, John Wick Chapter 4 made $7.9 million, down 45%. It's hemorrhaging theaters, losing 574. It's at $160.1 million in its fourth weekend. Number four, Renfield made $7.7 million in its first frame. And number five, Air also made 7.7, but just a tiny bit less, down 47% in its second frame. It's at $33.2 million.
You know what, Clayton? I think we got to go further than five because there's a couple of notable ones out there, including some new releases. So number six was Dungeons and Dragons: Honor Amongst Thieves, made 7.3, and it is now up to $74 million domestic. Number seven, Suzume, which was a new Crunchyroll pick, that came in at $5 million, and gotta give him his propers. Wannabe oh boy Marcus nailed it. Completely
Nailed
nailed it.
it.
Nailed
Yes.
it. So way to go, Marcus. You nailed the opening weekend prediction for Suzume. You truly are the BO Boys Crunchyroll anime correspondent. And number eight, the Italian dominance of the box office continues because Mafia Mama, it did make the top 10 as I predicted, and it did do $2 million. Which, what was the movie we used as the over under last week? It completely slips my mind. In our weekend prediction episode, we did an over under on what Mafia. Oh, I know what it is. The Diane Keaton movie that got a D cinema score, the Switcheroo
Yeah.
movie.
Yeah. Cat and what was it called?
That movie, we all know.
Yeah.
We all know which movie that was. So that movie made $1 million, and Mafia Mama did double that, did $2 million. So
Yeah, I feel like I have to do a Mafia Mamma Mia Culpa.
yeah, I I am so glad that you're not fighting it. And Mac and Rita, that was the Diane Keaton
Mac and
switcheroo
Rita.
vehicle from this past August, open to 1 million. The Mafia Mama did double a Mac and Rita, did a Mac and
Mhm.
Rita and a Mac and Rita. And yeah, so I mean, listen, it is Italian Americans up and down this box office because you got Mafia Mama at 8, but number one, Super Mario. I mean, Clayton, what is going on here? That is an incredible second weekend here.
Well,
This is out of control.
we said this thing could hold. We said
Yes.
this thing, and it's weird. It was so. This movie seems to be impervious to anybody's tracking abilities because
Mm-hmm.
when it was in the 60s on Saturday, according to Deadline, like what,
Okay.
68 million or something,
Okay.
and
It made 80
everybody.
over 80 million this weekend.
Yeah, everybody in the comments, and listen, the Deadline comments are an S-hit show, but I
Yeah, yeah.
sometimes will scroll down,
Mm-hmm.
and everybody said too low, too low, too low. And I agreed. I was like, there's no way those are gonna stand. It's
Right.
just I think this is just a movie that we haven't seen in a very long time, a
Mm-hmm.
blockbuster kids film,
Mm-hmm.
and so these kids are just running up to the theater and buying tickets with, without pre-ordering. I mean, that's the thing is
Yeah.
kids aren't pre-ordering. Maybe the parents aren't pre-ordering, or they're getting nagged. They're not thinking they're going to end up going to this movie. And then the kids win out and they just go to the ticket booth and they buy tickets.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, listen, the Super Mario Brothers movie is officially a cultural phenomenon.
Yeah.
This is an event. This is movies as the center of culture.
Hmm.
Back the way it was way more often in the 80s and 90s, but that is what the Super Mario Brothers movie is right now. This is adult and children culture culminating in around Super Mario Brothers movie. This
Yeah.
is what everyone's talking about, but more importantly, this is what everyone is going to right now. I mean, Clayton, the drop in its second weekend was only 41%.
Hmm.
That is absurd.
We've grown so accustomed to big movies, big tentpole
Mhm.
movies dropping in the 60s.
Mhm.
High 60s, low
Yep.
60s. If it does well, it's in the 50s,
Right.
right?
Right.
41 is amazing for the amount of money it made
Right.
last
Right.
weekend, because it
Right.
also jumped out of the gym in its expectations and its tracking last weekend. So
Right.
this is just par for the course now with Mario. You can't bet against Mario. It's the best second weekend ever for an animated movie,
Wow.
defeated Frozen 2,
Wow.
which made 85.9 million. So it was
Wow.
close, but Mario beat him.
Wow, more than Incredibles 2 in 2018. That second weekend was 80 million
Hmm.
on a
Yeah, so
56% drop. I mean, Mario, I mean, this is a real sign of the times because it is officially video games are surpassing superhero movies as
mhm.
the top IP format at the movies, and Mario is whipping Pixar's behind as the leader amongst animated films. It is
W-
not a small feat that Mario bested both Incredibles 2, bested, I mean, Frozen is
it's not
Disney animated
Pixar.
proper. It's not Pixar, but Incredibles 2 was the, high water mark. It was the biggest hit Pixar has had recently. Probably it's their last mega blockbuster,
Mhm.
right? I would say Incredibles 2 is the last time Pixar has had a slam doink giant home run, and Mario just crushed him,
Well,
stomped him
because
like a Goomba from the
we
video game.
we now, I mean, I don't wanna get it, listen, it's very easy for me to Pixar bash, and I
Right,
do it often.
right.
Mario is pure fun. Mario
Mhm,
is not a movie about a dead jazz musician. It's not a
mhm,
movie about a plumber with anxiety. Mario doesn't
mhm,
have crippling anxiety,
mhm,
right? It's not about a dystopian future, right? It is pure fun.
mhm,
And
mhm,
really, that's what people want.
mhm.
And, sometimes Pixar can really knock it out of the Toy Story movies. Listen, if there's a Toy Story 5, I'm sure it's gonna be great.
Okay,
If there's a Incredibles 3, I'm sure it's gonna be great.
okay.
But Elementals, listen, stick to Disney Plus.
Wow,
Stick to Disney
wow.
Plus. And listen, this isn't about Pixar. This is about giving Mario his propers, which
Yes,
is what we're
yes.
doing. But what I'm saying is their time has passed. Long live Nintendo and long live fun, for Christ's
Mhm,
sake. Let's
mhm.
just have some fucking fun. I said it. Sorry,
Wow,
kids. You're gonna have to learn at some point that the BO
wow,
boys swear.
wow, wow. I mean, I there's nothing there that I could disagree with. There's nothing there, and I want to because it makes for good radio, but
Yeah.
there's nothing there I could disagree with. The Super Mario Brothers movie promised fun, and it delivered, and Mario is now the king of animation, and video games are now the king of movie IP. And I
Mhm.
think we are really going to see that this year. Listen, we may have this early in the year, a movie that opened in April may well go the distance and be the biggest movie of all of 2023. Because when you look down the road at the calendar, there are giant movies opening this year. I mean, we've got, a Guardians movie, and we got a Fast and Furious sequel, and we've got Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning, huge movies this year.
Mhm.
But as things are playing out in this Super Mario Brothers run, it is at $347 million domestic in its second weekend.
Oh, it's insane, these brothers' box office.
It is insane. It is completely insane. This is a movie that is now at 677 million worldwide. I mean, Billion Dollar Baby is a slam doink. Again, it would take
Oh, yeah.
it's going to take a civilization ending event
Mhm.
to keep Super Mario Brothers movie from becoming a $1 billion baby this year. It's a slam doink, and you know, you look at how worldwide box office is going now. The China numbers are never going to be what they were years ago. So $1 billion babies are not going to come as fast and furious as they did in the pre-pandemic times.
Yes.
And so you may only have a couple of them this year, and Super Mario Brothers could end up being the only one. But uh, looking at the schedule, Super Mario Brothers could end up being the biggest domestic and worldwide film of the entire year. That is what Mario is looking to achieve right now. $347 million after 10 days? 10 days?
Mhm.
I mean, is this thing Avatar? What is Mario?
I
They're
know.
honestly at this point, we cannot put a ceiling on what Super Mario Brothers movie is going to end up doing.
Yeah, because I think this is a movie that is gonna be rewatched in the
Mhm.
theater, right?
Yes.
It's short, it's sweet, it's fun, there's something for everyone,
Yep.
right? And I think there's no limit to how many times somebody can go see this film,
No.
if they so
No.
choose to.
Yeah.
My chosen number of times is 0, and it will stay at 0, but I can applaud this movie for its box office without having to sit through it.
Now, I know you say that now,
I'm not a
but
critic, huh? So I
you're
listen,
not a
this is
critic,
not.
huh?
Yeah. So I'm not making a value judgment on this film. I'm making a judgment on my what I like and what I don't like. And I don't like cartoons because I'm not a baby.
Sure, but there comes a point as a BO boy where what you like and what you enjoy shouldn't matter when it comes to what you need to see. And I do think Super Mario Brothers movie box office, where it is now and where it is going to end up, I do think you owe it to the show to sit in a movie theater and bear witness to what could very well be the biggest box office movie of the year. I think it goes
I
beyond
did see. I
your
disagree.
wants. It
I
goes beyond your
disagree.
wants. This is something that you have to be a part of because Mario is now the biggest box office star in the effing world, Clayton.
Listen, uh, a a news
Applause is not
reporter.
enough. Applause is
Listen,
not enough.
a news reporter
Yeah.
can report on the Berlin Wall coming down
Okay.
without bringing out a pickaxe and taking the chunk.
No, but they
That's
should
what I'm
visit.
saying.
But you gotta be on site. You gotta. I do think for a story this big, you've got to be there, and you've got to be at the hotel where you hear the bombs. You're pointing out your balcony. You're saying, "There's where the bomb dropped," because I'm a on site correspondent. And I do think
But
for Mario that this is
and
that
I'm
type of
hearing the
story.
bombs, and I'm hearing about this movie and how well it's doing, but I'm not saying drop the bomb on me.
I mean, listen. Well, this is maybe an off at the water cooler discussion,
Mhm.
or honestly at the offices of the Bo Boy Central.
Mhm.
This might be a boardroom discussion that we have to have. But I think taste and wants go out the window when you have something like Super Mario Brothers, which is now at 10 days at 347.8 million domestic. It is a story that must be borne witness in person.
Well, we disagree, but we will continue this debate.
Yes, yes.
All of our
Lawyers may get involved. Lawyers
wanna
may get
be
involved.
wanna be boys, wanna be girls, wanna be people reach
People.
out to us. Where do you stand on this debate? Do I
Mhm.
have to subject myself to a baby movie just to be able to report on it? I
And
guess.
and that's the you don't get to $347 million domestic in 10 days if it is just a quote unquote baby movie.
That's
Super Mario Brothers has reached across those age demographics, and as hard it is as it might be to conceive, it has reached audiences that are even older than you, Clayton.
You could
So
be a 50-year-old baby. You could be a 50-year-old baby. You can.
I think we're getting into territory that goes beyond box office. So let's move off of this. We may have to get the lawyers and the board of directors involved.
Can we agree he
This may go to a vote of no confidence, Clayton.
Can I agree? Can we agree? I can always agree with myself, but
Always.
can we both agree that a movie I never have to see is
Okay.
Renfield?
I mean, this is a movie, not that you just don't have to see. It is a movie that seeing it in the theater, your hours may be numbered.
Oh,
I
I
don't
would
think
have to
anyone's.
run out right now. I would have to cancel this record and
Yes.
and get the late showing tonight
Yeah.
to be able to see it.
I think this is a situation with Renfield where there are scheduled showings for Tuesday and Wednesday that are probably being canceled as we speak.
Oh, they're becoming Mario showings for sure, or they're
Yes.
becoming Pope Exorcist showing
Yeah.
because good for the Pope's Exorcist, which is number 2 with 9.1, which listen, 9.1 is no great shakes, but this thing was tracking to be really low and
Mhm.
tracking to be under Renfield,
Mhm.
and it beat it. It
Yeah.
soundly beat it. It wasn't even
Yeah.
it ended up not even being close because I did say on our preview episode, these 2 could kinda battle it out.
Okay. Well, you said they were cannibalizing the same audience. I still
Well,
disagree they are.
okay, well, here we go then. Will you then disagree
Uh-huh.
with Anthony D. Alessandro?
I mean, the D
D
may
is
stand
for
for disagree.
well, D is for okay. Um, Universal's okay, here we go. Despite one film being R-rated and a horror comedy and another a straight up R-rated horror title,
Mhm.
is there a cannibalization of audience going on here? Yeah. Both titles'
And
leading demos are men over 25. Renfield was 43%, Pope at 40%, and women over 25. Renfield at 33% and Pope at 29%. So,
mhm.
none other than the man, the myth, the legend, Anthony Diaz for Disney, D'Alessandro, has agreed with me. So I
And
feel vindicated that he even said cannibalization.
he
And
said it,
it
and I
I
D
look at
for disagree.
well I D for don't uh don't try to disagree with me just because you like doing it. How about that?
I mean, I think that you could have men over 25 who are still going to the movies for different things. And I think that Renfield was clearly going for a goofy comedy audience. and also trying to trick people to thinking they were getting a superhero movie. And Pope's Exorcist is for the gorehounds. Renfield was not for the gorehounds.
People listen. People love horror comedies. Horror fans love horror comedies. You know who
But
we should get? Brett from the New Flesh.
yes,
We need to reach out to him and
yes,
ask
he
if
could
there was
settle this.
cannibalization here. That we can't fight amongst ourselves here.
Yes,
We're not
yes.
experts on this. I
He's
say
our chief horror
cannibalization,
correspondent. Mhm.
and you say no cannibalization, and it's going to be up to him. So let's reach out to him after this
Yep,
episode.
yep,
Maybe tweet at him and
yep,
be like, "Listen, cannibalization or no cannibalization."
yep.
But the plain facts of this, other than that, is
Mhm.
that nobody wanted to see Renfield. Okay.
Yes, we could all agree on that.
Now, we had a conversation by the water cooler about this.
Mhm.
Nicholas Hoult, people like him. He was just in a great movie that was a sneaky hit
Mhm.
with what was it called again? It was the Menu.
Yes, yes. The Menu was a solid success for him. Everyone loves it. Yeah.
He's an actor that's probably going to get an Oscar nom at some point.
Mhm.
So I
Mhm.
don't think I never saw him as a guy who could be a lead actor in big budget films. He doesn't feel like that guy to me. So I don't
I
think this is incredibly damaging to him.
I mean, I think it hurts. Renfield bombing hurts him in the sense that this could have been huge, and then he would have had a franchise.
Mm-hmm.
That's the best case, and that was very much on the table. Like, Universal wanted to make Renfield 2 and Renfield 3 and then cross Renfield over with, I guess, a funny version of The Mummy at some point. And,
Mm-hmm.
clearly, there will never be any discussion of continuing Renfield. So I think it hurts Nicholas Hoult in the sense that this was a potential big deal for him that's not going to happen. But I don't think it means Nicholas Hoult is on the Taylor Lautner do not
No,
call list.
absolutely not.
That's not going to happen. But he wanted Renfield to be his character, to be his big box office character, and it's
Well, you want
clearly
that big
not.
check so you can continue to do interesting work. I mean, that's
Right, right,
the dream for someone like him.
right, right,
Aquafina, the heat is past, not a going concern. I don't think we need to really talk about Aquafina in this.
right.
The big person who
Hmm.
this failure affects is Nicolas Cage,
Yeah.
because there was this feeling that maybe we were seeing a renaissance with him.
Hmm.
And the plain facts are Unbearable, Genius, or whatever that name of that movie was, super underperformed. And you can
Yeah.
blame that on, COVID-ish times.
Hmm.
This movie, you can't blame that,
No.
obviously. People don't want his stuff anymore.
Hmm.
They just don't want it. They don't want to go to a theater and sit and watch a Nicolas Cage movie. Now, the man had a great run.
Oh, incredible run.
I mean, Pig was a great movie. He had some Oscar buzz. He will continue to do crappy B movies and sneaky good indie movies. But his days of a blockbuster Hollywood film are in the rearview mirror at this point.
Yeah.
I don't. This movie. Now, we said that we got a lot of emails and tweets and things about the fact that we said that the budget for this movie was in the 80s. I think we said 86. Turns
Right.
out the budget was in the 60s.
Right.
But guess what? It still holds true that this was the most expensive of these Universal B movies,
Mhm.
and it tanked. I mean,
Tanked.
just to give you an idea, Charlie's Angels,
Oh, no.
the low watermark that we used for blockbusters for the longest time, that made 8 million
Oh my
plus.
god.
This made 7.7. Like, it's in the 7. This is a disaster.
Disaster. When you compare it to these recent Universal B-movie comedies, your Violent Nights and your Cocaine Bears and your Megans, and those movies were opening in the 20s and 30s with
Mhm.
way less promotion, way less IP, less star power, or I guess now we know that's not true because Nicolas Cage is no longer a star. He
No.
is not. I think what Renfield really shows is Nicolas Cage is also not a value add
No,
at this
he's
point.
not.
And I think this also shows Nicolas Cage is a negative to a wide release studio movie. I think he's still a guy that you could put in there in your straight to VOD, Willy's Wonderland type of movies, and he's a recognizable face on a thumbnail. But to a mainstream audience, I think it's clear Nicolas Cage tells you this is going to be bad.
Dude,
This is
it
going to
worked.
be low rent. And this is coming from we love Nicolas Cage. We
Yeah.
loved the massive whatever of something something terrible title,
Yeah,
but it was a
yeah.
really funny movie. And both think he should have got the Oscar nom for Pig. But when you look at his last 15 plus years, and he does all of those D movies, his God, looking at I'm just scrolling through this list of his movies, Dog Eat Dog and Vengeance and Looking Glass and A Score to Settle and Grand Isle and Willy Wonderland. Just there's like 50 of these movies. And there's people who will say, "Oh, this one's actually good. This one's actually better than the rest." But it all adds up to a reputation where the average moviegoer, their awareness of Nicolas Cage is that he is forever off the deep end. He is forever enmeshed in just trash movies. And he is a sign, he is a symbol, he is a stamp of D quality movies. And again, listeners, you could disagree with me and you could point out 7 of these 50 movies that are actually great. And hey, I like Mandy. I might have had it on my top 10 list of whatever year that was, and Clayton doesn't like it. But none of that matters because his run as a B, C, D movie actor, you cannot scrub that off with just a critically well reviewed performance in Pig or
Yeah.
Massive Talent being a funny movie. That 15-year run does not scrub off. And I think Nicolas Cage was a negative when it came to people wanting to see Renfield. I think that movie with a different actor, to me, it's clear a different actor who doesn't have Nicolas Cage's stink, Renfield probably does better. I think Renfield bombed partly because Nicolas Cage is just a stamp of low quality at this point.
Pat, you absolutely nailed it. And that worked on me because our conversation that we had about these Universal B movies, in my mind, I thought Renfield had the lowest budget of all of them.
Mhm.
And the reason being is that Nicolas Cage was in it.
Yep.
That worked on my brain, and I should know better.
Mhm.
But seeing Nicolas Cage, I was like, well, there's no way that this budget could be bigger than Megan.
Right.
Because
Right.
if you had Nicolas Cage and Megan, I would be like, what was the budget on that? Like $500,000?
Right. If you switch the casting and Nicolas Cage played, say, the uncle in Megan, he's the inventor and the uncle instead of Allison Williams as the inventor and the aunt.
Yeah.
And you put Allison Williams as Dracula in Renfield,
Oh.
I think that just the reversing of that casting changes the box office fortunes of those movies. I think Renfield would still end up being a way underperformer because
Mhm.
this movie apparently is very bad, and
Yeah.
as Scott Mendelson said, it leaned way too into superhero aspects instead of comedy.
Yeah.
Um, but I think Megan with Nicolas Cage is a bomb. Same movie, but with him is a bomb. And
Yeah.
and I'm not saying it's a bad movie because Nicolas Cage is a great actor and he's very funny when you give him a good movie. But I think that movie would bomb because people would think, oh, Nicolas Cage is in it. This Megan movie is going to be terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I think if Nicolas Cage had invented Megan for his niece whose parents died, I would be like, this movie must be cheap as hell.
Yes.
This must
Yes.
be an asylum movie.
Yes. Yes. And I think what Nicolas Cage and this Renfield box office is showing is that, Nicolas Cage, the story is he went and he did these 100 D movies in that 15-20 year run because he was paying off taxes or whatever his money issues were, and he had to do all these movies. And that's all well and good, and I hope it paid off, and he's paid off his taxes and his gambling debts or whatever it was he had to pay off. But you can't just wash off a run that long so easily.
Mhm.
And it's disappointing because, again, we love Nicolas Cage, but Renfield showed who what the perception of Nicolas Cage is to average moviegoers. And it's maybe it'll wash off someday, but he is going to need a long run of successful under the radar projects to wash off that stink. And I just don't think it's possible at this point.
No, I totally agree. So Renfield Disaster is going to just plummet
Plummet.
this coming weekend because talking about cannibalization, and I know you don't think that The Pope's Exorcist was the same sort of movie, but I think Evil Dead Rising is going to be a huge movie, and I think some people save their money
Mm-hmm.
to wait for that film next weekend,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think, Renfield is going to drop, I think, in the 70s.
Yeah.
Renfield's going to make like $2 million next weekend. It's going to be a
Oh, it's gonna
massacre.
be terrible. I mean, it might be on Peacock when we get off mic.
Yes. Yes. And you know what? I'd
Good,
watch
it
it.
should. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'd watch the hell out of it because I wouldn't have any sort of real investment,
Right. Right.
to worry about there. But it's also a movie that was in the theaters, so good on you and Universal for putting it in theaters. And we're at the point where box office is healthy enough where Renfield was not a casualty of anything but apathy.
Yes, yes, yes. It is healthy to occasionally have these big budget bombs. It's like getting food poisoning.
Mhm.
You feel sick in that moment, but you're getting the poison out.
Yep.
And
Get the
it's
poison out.
healthy to get the poison out of these just failed projects. And that's what Renfield is. I think we should take note. This is something that the great Scott Mendelson tweeted when talking about Renfield is he saw the film, and to him, a huge problem with Renfield is how much it leaned into being an attempt at a superhero movie.
Mhm.
Making Renfield into a superhero rather than really leaning into pure horror comedy. The way a Cocaine Bear or Violent Night did.
Yeah.
And therefore, I think we could look at Renfield in a way as another, not nail in the coffin, but uh, uh, another stair on the down staircase of the decline of superhero movies.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
People,
at this point, superhero movies are looking up at video games on the way down, is what's
yes,
happening.
yes, yes, and I think Renfield is just another sign of that. People do not want superhero movies in the same way they did a few years ago. And the Renfield trailer really did try and make the Renfield character seem like he was an Avenger, and people don't want that right now. They don't want Nicolas Cage, and they don't want more superhero movies with DIP like Renfield is.
And so I know Renfield underperformed. Pope's
Yes.
Exorcist was never going to be a mega hit, and it did really respectably for what it was.
Yep.
But that coupled with Mario doing amazing business and Air continuing to be a
Mhm.
great adult movie,
Mhm.
we are right now plus 20% over the same second weekend in April during the pre-pandemic 2019.
Wow. Wow.
And we're
That
24% ahead of the same weekend a year ago, which had Fantastic Beasts: The Secrets of Dumbledore. So
wow.
everybody who's saying we'll never get back to pre-pandemic, we wouldn't ever get back to pre-pandemic if the product continued to just be shuffled off onto HBO Max
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
Peacock or any of the other services, right? There's product in the theater and it's not all going to hit. But you see, The Pope's Exorcist, now that it's made $9 million in the theater, that thing is going to be a great find on whatever streaming service it lands on.
Yes. Yes.
So Sony, so then it would eventually end up on Netflix, right?
Yes. Oh, it's gonna be the number 1 movie on Netflix in, like, 6 months for sure.
Exactly. So it will have another life. And good for Russell Crowe. He still is a draw. I mean, people went to see this movie because Russell Crowe.
Yeah. It a at this point, I mean, they're both I mean, Nicolas Cage was, I guess, a star earlier than Russell Crowe, but they had similar time periods where they were at their heights. Their heights were what, late 90s for Nicolas Cage, Russell Crowe's more the 2000s. But either way, they both tapered off. But I think right now, Russell Crowe means more than Nicolas Cage at the box office. I mean, they
Oh,
face off head to head. Nicolas Cage had a much higher profile project,
yeah.
and people decided Russell Crowe meant more.
Mhm. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So talking, you mentioned Air.
Yeah,
Air,
let's talk Air.
it dropped 47% in its second weekend. So a good hold, not a hold that would have meant this is going to be off the charts successful. Like we were hoping
Yeah.
Air would have a magical, drop of only 40% or something like that.
Mhm.
But the 47% is great. And also it's Mario steamrolling everything right now.
Yeah.
But Air had a really good hold, 7.7. So last week, the movie I comped it to before it came out was House of Gucci. House of
Mhm.
Gucci came out in November of 2021. And after its second weekend, House of Gucci was at 33.8 million. And after its second weekend, Air is at 33.2 million. So those two are playing very in line with each other. And
Mhm.
House of Gucci ended up getting all the way to 53.7 million. So
Yeah.
I would say the hope here for Air is, can it get over 50 million domestic when all said and done? I think
Yeah.
so.
I think so, and I feel like this is a movie, I mean, I still haven't been able to see, and I still plan to see. And
Mhm.
I do feel like there's a lot of people like me out there. I'm in that group, that age group that might not necessarily be able to run out and see a movie the first weekend, but will make time in their schedule to do that. And I've
Mhm.
talked to a lot of people who are still wanting to see this movie, but they have just not gotten around to it. So I
Mhm.
think if the screens are there, it's gonna be a movie that's gonna just continue and continue to have good, solid business during the week and on weekends. And I think with the NBA playoffs, that's just gonna feed into this where they're gonna be,
Mm.
"Oh, I wanna see this movie about one of the greatest of all time,
Yep.
starring 2 of the greatest actors of all time."
Mhm.
And, well, and I guess 3, I mean, Viola Davis, you gotta throw her in there too.
Oh, you were starting with Damon and Affleck and
Yeah, and
then
then
Viola
Viola
Davis. So yeah,
Davis, and
that
then
three, three,
yeah,
three greats. Yeah. It's a
3
great team.
greats.
It's a great team for Air. A movie that Anthony D is for, I disagree with him this week, D'Alessandro. A
Okay.
movie that he comped Air to was Ticket to Paradise, the George Clooney, Julia Roberts movie that came out this past October 2022. And, that was a romantic comedy for adults. Airs on a romantic comedy, but it is a dramatic comedy
Mhm.
with two, big stars from the 90s, 2000s. And after its second week, Ticket to Paradise was at $33 million. So Air is right there with House of Gucci and with Ticket to Paradise. Now, Ticket to Paradise got all the way up to 68 million domestic.
Yeah.
I, I don't think that's realistic for Air because Ticket to Paradise came out in the fall in a period when there was nothing out in theaters for a couple of
Yep.
months. It was basically Black Adam bombed, Wakanda Forever came out, and then nothing came out until Avatar.
Yeah.
So it had more runway. But I think Air could comfortably land in between House of Gucci in the low 50s and Ticket to Paradise in the high 60s. And maybe it does get to 60 if everything breaks right.
And I do think like Ticket to Paradise, not that Air is some sort of art film, but
Hmm.
Ticket to Paradise is a very easily understood film that has a very low level concept. Stars 2 megawatt, vintage stars at this point.
Hmm.
And so I think it's an easier film to sell to everybody. I think Air is one of those movies that is going to have to get certain people to go see it just by word of mouth of people they really trust, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
And I think Ticket to Paradise is a movie you could probably just watch and just turn your brain off. And Air is a fun film that might have a little bit more to it, a little bit more talky, a little bit more like a Moneyball sort of movie than something like Ticket to Paradise, where it's, Julie Roberts and George Clooney on a vacation together.
Right, right. I mean, Ticket to Paradise is an easier sell as a date movie than
Yeah, but
Air. Than
I think Air is a sophisticated person's date movie,
oh yeah,
which you and your wife, are indicative of.
yes, we did go see Air on a date.
Mhm,
Um, so yeah, I mean, I think Air next weekend is probably big for it
mhm.
because Evil Dead Rise coming out. Obviously, it'll get a lot of men. It's the hot new movie, but I think Air could still do really well up against Evil Dead Rise this weekend.
I
It's
mean,
not
again,
until
the movie's gonna suffer. The movie that's gonna suffer is Pope's Exorcist in Renfield. I
oh,
mean, Renfield for
yeah.
many reasons, but Pope's Exorcist had its day in the sun, and it's probably gonna be completely destroyed by Evil Dead,
Yes,
which
definitely.
is ironic, but
S- So, yeah, I think Air is going to be a interesting one to follow. The next 2 weeks, honestly, it's still got an opening where there aren't giant new movies coming out the next 2 weekends.
mhm.
So I think we should touch quickly on because someone did email us asking what we think of Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves, and
Yep.
it's what this box office means for this potentially still becoming a franchise. So Dungeons and Dragons in its third weekend made 7.3 million. It is now at 74 million domestic. It's doing well and it's well liked, but it doesn't seem like this movie is really catching fire. And I think the time has
No.
passed if this was going to catch fire.
Yes. Yeah, it had a tough release date, and that's obviously been talked about. So, that's made it difficult, but how long do you hold on to this movie at this point, right? I mean,
And it's
you
not going to
can't put
get
it out
any
in the
easier.
summer.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's the thing, it's not gonna get any easier. So,
Yeah.
they ramped this up the way they wanted to, they had a lot of preview showings, they really built some anticipation. I keep going back to that Power Rangers movie that Anthony D'Alessandro mentioned in his initial comp for this when after the first weekend. And what are we? We're in week 3 of Dungeons and Dragons?
Yeah, this was the third weekend for Dungeons and Dragons.
Wow, and it's at $74 million. In the third weekend for this Power Rangers movie, it was
Mhm.
at 75.
Yep.
So, this is so one to one at the moment that I really feel like this thing is not going to be a franchise. The only thing that will make it make sense for this movie to get a sequel is if it plays through the roof on Paramount Plus,
Right.
right? And does spectacular VOD, right? It has to do great VOD and PVOD, obviously,
Yep.
and then play like gangbusters on Paramount Plus, and then it makes sense to spend the money and put a second one in theaters,
Mhm.
which
Mhm.
could do better than the first. That I mean, there's a possibility that there will be that because
Yes.
everything seems to be there to make this thing succeed. It just had a really tough release date. There's other I mean, Mario I mean, listen,
I think Mario's the big thing.
Mario's the big one.
I think the release date thing is a little overblown where people are digging Paramount for when they released it because
No, I'm not digging them. Other
you
people
gotta put the
are.
movie out, and it did have a
Yeah.
weekend where it was all to itself. So it's
Mhm.
not like it
And it
opened
went
it
number 1.
and it went number 1, and movies have to come out, and there's gonna be competition. I think the bigger thing with Dungeons& and Dragons is it was one of those IPs, especially because the one they made, whatever was 15, 20 years ago, was a huge bomb.
Yeah.
And it's an IP that has a little bit of stench to it or a little bit of thumb your nose at Dungeons& and Dragons.
I
They
mean, I
needed to
think
make,
that movie was so a blip on the radar. People don't remember that movie.
but just the Dungeons& and Dragons perception to mainstream audiences is still it's a thing for nerds play it, whatever. And they needed to put a good movie out there that eventually people will catch up to and like. And
Mhm.
I do think there is an opportunity for this to still be a franchise because it seems like people who have seen the first one liked it.
Mhm.
And I think people catching it on their TV in the next year or so could create uh, uh, desire for another Dungeons& Dragons movie that wasn't there for this first movie. This first
Yeah.
movie needed to create more interest in the IP.
Yeah.
So, I mean, now to say, do you green light another big budget Dungeons& Dragons movie if this makes 85, $90 million based on the fact that, oh, well, people are liking it on Paramount Plus? I don't know, but that may be the play here. It may be worth it. It may be worth it to do that because people did like this movie. It's almost a reverse Tomb Raider trap. Scott Mendelssohn's Tomb Raider trap theory is big hit movies that stink, and
Yeah.
then the second movie bombs because of how bad the first movie was. And this
Yeah.
could be a reverse where the first movie did okay, but it was pretty good and people liked it. So the second movie should do better.
Yeah, I don't feel like this is like a Pacific Rim situation where, the overseas money is the reason that thing got a sequel. That's not gonna be the case
Mhm.
with D&D, obviously, but I don't think anybody was clamoring for another Pacific Rising movie, truly. I
Right,
do
right.
think that if I were Paramount, you know, uh, barring whatever, in the next couple weeks, we're gonna see what the legs continue to be, right?
Mhm.
I personally would, if things go well and this movie does decently and continues to not drop precipitously,
Mhm.
I would invest in it
Yeah.
because of the talent behind the camera on it,
Mhm.
the talent in front of the camera, and the fact that this is a rich world that can be turned into other movies as well.
Yes.
Like, you
Yes.
don't wanna kill D&D in the crib because there's no reason to do that. Power Rangers it's been mentioned before, Anthony D'Alessandro mentioned it. That has been so thoroughly destroyed by crappy television spinoffs that it doesn't feel special,
Mhm.
right? Because you can just watch it on TV any hour of the day.
Right.
Where D&D, the way they did this film was an act of, acrobatics to make it not too, too cheesy, not too dorky, all these different things. From what I heard, they do a spectacular job threading this needle. So
Mhm.
you can't throw away a potential franchise because number one, again, not blaming the release date, but it was a tough release date. And also Mario is a world beater. And nobody expected Mario. We thought it was going to be huge. Nobody expected it to be this huge, right?
Right,
And
right,
so I think you couldn't understand how much air this thing was going to suck up. And it
right.
did.
It did.
And so you gotta give D&D a little bit of leeway for Mario. I know businessmen only care about money, huh?
Huh?
But don't throw the baby out with the bathwater because that baby could end up shitting golden turds at some point,
Yes, yes, yes.
you know?
100%. Yeah, I mean, I think, and listen, Dungeons and Dragons is at what, 74 million domestic? It
Mhm.
still could, I think it's going to pass what Power Rangers did, that 85 million. I mean, I think Power Rangers was even more front loaded than Dungeons and
Absolutely
Dragons.
front loaded, yeah.
And Power Rangers is just a movie that was always going to be a hard sell beyond the super fans. It's such
Yeah.
a goofy concept, but I think Dungeons and Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves could definitely get over 90. It still has the outside shot of hitting that, symbolic but still meaningful number of 100 million domestic. I think
Mhm.
it's still in play, though it's going to be difficult.
Yeah.
And if it does that, and people continue to find it on PVOD and Paramount Plus, and this is to answer a question we got from wannabe oh boy Micah. I do think there is still franchise potential here. I mean, we got that email weeks ago from wannabe oh boy Adam, who outlined all the possible franchise implications of Dungeons and Dragons, all the interconnected universe. So,
Oh,
like you
yeah.
said, there's so much potential here, and the first movie seems to be well liked. And I think it was just a necessary movie to just reestablish this as a movie IP.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, but it would help if this movie did leg out to 100. I think it has to get to at least 90 million domestic, which I do think it will
Absolutely.
do that.
Yeah. It absolutely has to do that. But, yeah, so to answer the question, I I mean, it's not necessarily a hit at the moment. It's definitely done very well,
Mhm.
but we would invest in its future, I think
Yes.
is the answer to that question.
Yes. Would you greenlight a sequel to Mafia Mama based on its opening weekend? Do you think there's
No,
franchise potential here?
that that baby I
Mhm.
would throw in the river
Okay.
and stand there all night to watch it drown and make sure it never bobs back up.
So here's why I would agree with you about not making a Mafia Mama 2. And it's not
Bad
anything
exits.
against, it's not even that. It's not even anything against Mafia Mama itself. But if you look at the history of box office of mafia comedy box office,
Mhm.
you go back to, I would say, the gold standard, which was Analyze This, right? Analyze This
Mhm.
came out in 1999, opened to 18 million, and the Billy Crystal Robert De Niro two-hander got all the way to $106 million. So that's a huge hit, but then they made the sequel, Analyze That, and that movie did not reach the heights of Analyze This. And I am having a hard time finding the box office for Analyze That because it's turning, the Google search is just giving me a lot of just there we go. Okay. So
Are you
Analyze
getting
That
better help commercials?
Analyze That came out in 2002, and it got to 32 million domestic. So almost 70 million less than the original. So all that is to say, people may have loved this Mafia Mama, but based on the analyze this, analyze that trajectory, Mafia Mama 2 would not do nearly as well.
Now, I'm glad that we're on the same page here, and your affiliation with the Italian people
Persuasion. Hmm.
persuasion hasn't swayed you here. Now, real quick, I was looking up Jane Austen's Mafia
Okay.
from 1998.
Which never did get a sequel.
Never did get a sequel. Starring Jay Moore,
Hmm.
star of Air.
Star of Air. Yes. Co-star. I would say more co-star of Air.
If I were to ask you what it made
Okay.
domestically,
Okay.
this is a tough one, and if you're way off, that's fine. I mean, I would not have gotten this. What would you
Okay.
say Jane Austen's Mafia made in 1998? It
Uh
opened in July of that year, July 24th.
um did it get to $32 million domestic?
No, lower than that.
Um I mean, did it I mean, I thought that, so I mean, it did it get to 20 domestic in total?
I'm going to give you that 19.8.
Okay. What did it open to? Like 7?
Yeah, 6.5. So
Okay. Yeah, yeah.
almost as much as Renfield made.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so that, I mean, listen, that just shows you the amount of interest in a mafia comedy.
Right, right, right. Right. Yeah, it's a listen, it's a tough genre for sure.
Mhm.
Analyze This obviously is the king of mafia comedies,
Yep.
but as we saw, the sequel is a tough sell. So I don't
Yeah.
yeah, I don't think there will be Mafia Mama part 2.
No, I agree. Now, real quick before we go, Pat, it'd be
Mhm.
remiss to not mention a little movie that we really didn't talk about in our preview
Okay.
because I don't think it was really gonna do much when it came to, the top 10, but it actually did sneak into the top 10, and I'm talking about a movie called Nefarious,
Okay.
which was in 933 theaters.
Mhm.
It made $1.3 million and snuck into this top 10, and what's interesting about this film is it stars Sean Patrick Flannery. It's a serial killer movie, or at
Okay.
least a movie about a criminal who claims he was possessed by a demon.
Okay.
But it is produced by a out of nowhere company that has never put out a movie before. Soli Dio Gloria is the name of this studio.
Okay.
And so, who knows? Is this a new player in the low budget exploitation B movie theater game? I mean, it's possible.
We gotta keep our eye out for it, and, Sean Patrick Flannery, welcome to the top 10 of the box office.
Yeah.
That is, you know, y- you get unexpected visitors to the top 10 every once in a while, and Sean Patrick Flannery is definitely an unexpected visitor to the top 10 in 2023. And so this is not a Christian film or a Fathom event. This is just a horror movie that came in number 10.
Yeah. I mean, let's see. I mean, I hope this doesn't go the way of Solstice Studios, which released
Right.
Unhinged,
Yep.
a movie that we're very, very uh excited about and really did do what Tenet uh, said it did.
Yes, I mean, we were talking a lot about Unhinged back in August, September, October of 2020 because, of course, the BO Boys did not miss a week during the COVID-19 pandemic. We cover the box office every week, and that meant covering Unhinged and Salsa Studios extensively 3 years ago.
Here's the thing. Okay, I'm doing a little research here. This
Okay.
may be a religious movie. It's
It
possible
might be.
because when
Okay.
I looked into this studio, the
Mhm.
only other movie they had anything to do with, which they financed and produced a movie called Unplanned that
Okay.
came out in 2019, and it actually made $19 million at the box office, the same amount that Jane Austen's Mafia made,
Wow.
and opened to 6.3, pretty close to the opening of Jane Austen's Mafia. Now,
Wow.
but this movie was released domestically by a company called Pure Flix Entertainment,
Okay.
which I believe is a more, I believe it is a Christian adjacent, not even adjacent, because they are the releasing company for God's Not Dead and God's Not
Yeah.
Dead 2,
So
and The
does
Case
this
for
feel
Christ, and Do You Believe, and
Hmm.
Unbroken Path to Redemption, and, Samson, A Question of Faith, Hillsong, Let Hope Rise, and I'm Not Ashamed. So, this movie must be a religious film,
So
and it's
do you think that Soli Deo Gloria releasing might be the horror shingle of Pure Flix? Like sort of the dimension to their Miramax where they're going to release Christian horror films?
I mean, that is a great question. I wanna see what Nefarious is about. I mean, this is maybe something to talk about when we're more informed
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
on it, but it's interesting. Its genre is horror. Oh, man, I mean, this may have a Christian bent to it.
So I am seeing, I mean, and this is all on the fly reporting that we're doing here. If you Google Soli Deo Gloria releasing, one of the things that I found was a court case in which the plaintiff was listed as Unplanned Movie LLC and Soli Deo Gloria Releasing LLC. And the
Okay.
defendant was Angel Christian Television Trust Incorporated. So it seems like there was some kind of lawsuit between Soli Deo Glory Releasing, which
Uh-huh.
released Nefarious, uh, and this Christian television company over something to do with the unplanned movie. I'm guessing the way it played on Christian television and probably some kind of financial withholdings that happened there.
Yeah.
So all to say, Soli Deo Gloria releasing very much seems to be a Christian film company and therefore nefarious, which if you look at the story, it's about a serial killer who claims that he was possessed by the devil. Listen, you prove existence of the devil, therefore you prove existence of Jesus, therefore
Mhm.
you're a religious movie. So,
Yeah, but very interesting. We'll gotta
very
keep an eye
interesting.
on this, releasing company.
Yeah. So a church bus movie that is a horror film.
I mean, along with video games, we are also seeing a resurgence or a surgence, I guess,
Yeah.
of religious content becoming not just, like, "Oh, that's, a Left Behind movie that's low budget."
Right.
It's like Mark Wahlberg got into it with Father Stu. Now that wasn't necessarily successful, but he did show that there's an
Right.
interest in, legitimate movies that
Right.
are aimed at the religious market. Jesus Revolution was one that
Mhm.
did really well. I mean, Angel Studios is getting into it with their fare. So listen, bye bye superheroes. Hello Jesus. Hello Mario.
Yes. Yes. Definitely. That is
And you
that
know
is the
what?
trend we're seeing.
I couldn't be happier about it.
So we should check in with Brett of the New Flesh podcast about this nefarious movie as well, and
Yes, we
and
need
get
to
his
ask.
input on how much of a horror film this really is. And of course, we also have to ask him what his opinion is and what his ruling is on whether Renfield and the Pope's Exorcist did cannibalize the same audience.
Yes.
He will be the verdict on that debate.
I'm willing to give myself over to him in that way.
Yes, yes. He will be the binding arbitration. We both
Love
agree
it.
on Brett of the New Flesh as an arbiter there.
Yes. Well, Pat, what a packed weekend. I
Mhm.
mean, I'm sure a lot of people weren't home doing their taxes. They were out watching movies.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
So have a fun Monday scrambling to get your tax returns done.
Oh boy. Yeah, I am in that boat. And I but you know what? I have the excuse like I think a lot of Americans do. I had to go see Mario. And
Had
I
to go see
think that should
Mario.
be a viable excuse for a late filing on your taxes this year because you had to go see the Super Mario Brothers
Well,
movie.
it's not on Monday. It's not Monday. It's not today. It is Tuesday. And I
Tuesday.
believe it's
Okay.
on Tuesday because of Mario.
Wow. Wow. Which again is another reason why you need to see this movie. This is Super Mario Brothers is such a cultural event that the federal government has delayed the filing date for the taxes because of Super Mario. And
Mhm.
again, the BO Boys board of directors may have to meet and file and give a vote of no confidence if you do not see this film in movie theaters.
No, I don't agree. I don't agree.
Well, we will leave that up to the board of directors. But Clayton, I think if anyone wants to email us and let us know how the board of directors should vote on this matter, email us at the BO Boys Podcast at gmail.com. We love getting your boots on the ground reporting, your predictions, your insight into specific genres, your predictions the way Marcus nailed the opening weekend of Suzume. Send us all of that and your opinion on whether Clayton needs to see the Super Mario Brothers movie at the BO Boys Podcast at gmail.com. Give us 5-star reviews across all podcast platforms, but especially Apple. That's the one that matters. Watch us on YouTube. We are YouTubers. So smash that like button. We're pointing down. Smash that like button. Smash that subscribe button. Follow us on social media. Wannabe intern Christopher is killing it with the video clips on Twitter. Of course, spread the word of the BO Boys. Retweet those videos. Tell your friends to listen to the podcast. We always want to get more and more and more people informed about the box office. It's not
Yes.
about increasing our wealth or popularity, huh? It is
Huh.
about creating a more informed populace through the BO Boys podcast. So spread the word. And yeah, that's all I got for you.
I don't have anything else. That's for
No,
sure. So, Pat, I don't think there's anything left to say
no.
except until next time.
Will
We'll smell
smell
you
you
at
at the
the
box
box
office.
office.
Nailed it.
Nailed it.